new topic?
New topic. What was your most memorable encounter this season on the water?
Well, I had two big ones. One was the superpod day, which I think you'll talk about, and that's why I'm going to talk about the sea lion hunt. It was our last day on the water, wasn't it? Ended up being our last day on the water?
It did,
The 19th, yeah. We had the T-36s and the T-137s and T-99B, big old group of Biggs. And they had spread out as they were heading north, and the more kind of western inshore group found a sea lion, and we could see them splashing, and we saw all the other whales head that way, so we got in position, we turned off the engines, dropped the hydrophones, got the drone in the air, and sure enough, they were going after a California sea lion, and they went after this thing for like 10, 12 minutes that we saw, and it's the first drone footage we've gotten of a sea lion hunt, and
raised so many questions, right?
Yeah, so it's so different from a seal hunt or a porpoise hunt. Sea lion hunt, the sea lion just stayed in one place and was basically going in circles, looking around, seeing where the next whale was going to come from. Meanwhile, the whales were just taking these incredibly fast, powerful lunges at it. Not necessarily trying to bite it, just trying to hit it.
Ram it, yeah.
Yeah.
And there were times when they would faint.
Yes.
Or pull off at the last second.
Yes.
And then there were times when they would make contact.
And it also looked synchronized. You know, you'd have one whale, next whale in a line as the sea lion's going in that direction. It was just incredible. It's incredible footage. It was incredible to see in the field.
And they weren't vocalizing.
They weren't vocalizing at all.
So how do they coordinate it?
And they actually failed this hunt, or they were either failed or never, super serious about it. But the sea lion survived. And it was one of those moments, I think I get comfortable with these animals. You know, we have them next to our boat sometimes, we see them in their kind of social mode, and you get in the mode of, you can almost forget, like, what they are as, like, incredibly powerful apex predators. Yeah. Seeing them move at that speed, that consistently, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, it racked my nerves. Like, it got me the next time we were, like, close to them. It's like, these are like just incredibly fast, powerful animals, and I know that intellectually, and I've seen it before, but there was something about this particular, seeing it from that perspective in that context, that really just kind of got my brain back to where it was several years ago before I got quite so comfortable being close to them in a boat. Yeah, it was really cool.
That was definitely a top moment for me too, but I think my most memorable one that will stay with me forever is the first day that we had a superpod with the entire Southern resident community together. Bad weather day, of course, so we weren't even sure we could get the drone up. But the whales weren't just in a superpod. We said several times that they were also behaving like a superpod, which to us means that they're in these like tight intermingling groups. It's all mixed up, and you'll think you have left some whales behind in another group, and suddenly they pop up in this group, or you've been watching some whales and suddenly they're gone and they're off somewhere else. And so it's just absolute whale soup with lots of surface activity and lots of vocalizing. The vocals were off the hook that day. We'll have to see. I think maybe this was one of the cases where it was too vocal with so many overlapping calls that we might not be able to localize things. We finally got like just enough of a break in the weather to get the drone up a little bit, which was really exciting, because it was like, oh, this is what we dream of. We have to get something out of it. But there was probably a good half hour or 45 minutes where we were just shut down in Admiralty Inlet and just had these large intermingling groups of Southern residents all around us. And we don't get moments like that very often anymore. And so that was just like good for the soul and also really good for the data set, because we probably got well over 1,000 vocals just on that day.
Yeah, it was incredible. Why do you think the whales aren't vocalizing as much as you expected? We already went over this. It's because they're jerks.
They hate us.
I think there's a few different factors. I think J-pod, especially when they're spread out and foraging, my guess is they've got a routine down. That they know where they're going to be going, they know when they're going to be meeting back up.
Well, and I think the same is probably true with the Biggs. Like when they weren't vocalizing during prey sharing, I think they know what to do.
Yeah.
If these are whales they're with all the time, they know the pattern.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. I do wonder, and again, this goes back to potential conservation implications, if there's some spatial differences. So if there are particular areas where they're more vocal, controlling for different behavior states if they're more vocal in some places than others.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, we see specific behaviors in certain places, right? Like you see the whales exit active pass. They're usually in a tight group. They fan out. They start getting surface active. Like it makes sense that there could be some vocal patterns in where they're vocalizing. And so our predictions were based on almost exclusively Harrow Strait and having listened to how often they're vocal in Harrow Strait. But it might just be different in different locations.
Yeah.
The other thing that does come to mind is the underwater soundscape in Puget Sound. Not that Harrow Strait is quiet by any means. There are very loud freighters that come through, but something that I had to listen to a lot was the constant ferry noise of the Washington State ferries transiting back and forth. And at times so loud that I had to take the headphones off. The whales don't have that luxury, but there may be times when the acoustic environment is so flooded with noise that it's not worth talking. And that's something that we've discussed maybe looking into at some point as well. Yeah. Is the ambient noise influencing whether they're vocal or not?
Yeah. There's a lot of studies showing in killer whales and other species, both the cetaceans and just animals generally, right, that there's at a certain level, ambient noise will increase and animals will try to speak up and talk louder to compensate. But
the cocktail party effect, same thing humans do, right?
Yeah, but there's also probably, a threshold at which it's like, well, I can't possibly speak up enough to be heard over this. It's not worth putting in the effort. You go from a cocktail party to a metal concert. It's not worth trying. It's not worth trying to have a conversation with your friend front row at a concert. So, it's something that happens with projects like these is you collect data for them, and while you're in the field, you come up with ideas for 5 more projects, and that's definitely one of them that's come up while we've been doing this.
All right, good. Get into the home stretch here.
Home stretch.
What was the most surprising thing you saw this season?
Ooh, I was gonna say that the different kind of social pairings we saw throughout the field season. There's obviously within pods and natural lines, there's the social pairings you expect. Even across pods, there's a few whales who I know are kind of friends, like K45 and L125.
Which I love. That's my favorite.
But there were a few pairings that we saw out there in really intense social interactions that I was just like, what are you two doing together? So L22 and J57 spent a while hanging out and maybe allokelping, at least in contact. L82 and J45 and...
Well, I can imagine what might be going on there.
Yeah, there was this... L82 was being kind of chased around, I would say, by J45 and K37. But that might have been mating. You just see these pairings that you are like, wow, everybody in this population knows each other, huh? Those are not two animals I would associate with one another at all.
Oh, what could we learn over time with those types of interactions, right? What's motivating them and stuff like that. This one, I don't know. I think for me it was probably seeing the Biggs in the really shallow waters going after birds. We knew they did that, but it was kind of the whole context of them going into these shallow waters where from the drone you could actually see their flukes kicking up sediment off the bottom. And one of the whales basically in complete stealth mode trying to sneak up on the birds. I'll never forget you said you expected her to wiggle her rump like a cat ready to pounce, and so that's forever how I'm going to think about it. But that was our moment where we had vocalizing Bigg's killer whales, was when they were kind of in multiple groups chasing different birds. And that was surprising to me, just that they went in the shallows, that they kind of all in 3 different groups were going after birds at the same time, and that's when vocals were happening. I was like, what's going on right now?
There's so many possible implications for that are could be whole research projects on their own. This idea of almost a vocal an acoustic refuge, where it's we're in this area where we're not expecting any of our potential prey items to hear us. Or
in the bay, you mean? Okay, so it was a safe place to vocalize?
Potentially. It's a one observation, so it's all just speculation. Or, we're not hungry right now, we're just playing, we're messing with birds, so we don't care if nearby, we're gonna be another 2 hours before we're back in hunting mode. We don't care if a harbor seal hears us right now. There's all of these questions about why then, right? Why is that the place and the time and the behavior where you start vocalizing.
I'm so grateful we had that moment, because I think if we hadn't had vocalizing Biggs at all, you might have like checked out of that being a problem. You're like, this is...
It's not going to work.
They don't talk at all.
They've never vocalized. It's all a lie.
But that encounter in itself was enough to be like, okay, we got to do more of this.
Yeah, for sure. If you had unlimited funding, what additional resources would be most valuable for this field work? If you had unlimited funding.
A drone that could fly in all weather conditions?
Yes, with the same quality of camera and GPS coordinates and control, all the same safety features, but waterproof, would be amazing.
A bigger boat, do you think?
Bigger boat might be good for this specific field work. Yeah, we wouldn't want to just upgrade the current boat, because the boat's kind of perfect for everything else we do. But yeah, a larger boat.
That would allow you to get the hydrophones further apart potentially, which would give you more localization power, more deck space just for everybody to operate, more room to get out of the weather potentially for the crew.
Something I've been thinking about, this would require both funding and additional permitting, is just a bunch of hydrophones with buoys and their own GPS units that are just free floating, and make this huge wide aperture array just in the general area that
in possession triangle.
Yeah, that you're recording from, and that bizarrely that would simplify the math, because you're not having to estimate the orientation of the boat anymore. You just have the locations of the different hydrophones. You'd want to like deploy them the day before.
Why?
Well, because you don't want to be driving around deploying all these buoys while you're with whales.
But wouldn't they be like in Elliott Bay the next day?
Yeah, probably. Look, I haven't thought this all the way through. I don't have unlimited funding.
What would be your dream for what you find in the data?
I'm going to dream small for right now.
Me too.
Specific to the project we have. I would like to get a model that can predict the behavioral state of the whale. I'm just going to go behavioral state.
To me, that's dreaming big.
I want to be able to predict it with like 80% accuracy.
Okay.
I want to be like 80% sure if we have this set of recordings over some length of time, this set of calls over some length of time, 80% sure what the whales were doing during that recording. And that like might sound like a really small goal, but that is pretty huge for what we're talking, just drawing that link between acoustics and behavior.
I think I'm going more specific, not behavior state, but specific behavior, where like a whale catches a fish and is interested or willing to prey share with another whale. Like, is there a specific call for that? Or like to call a whale over?
Yeah. And similar to that, we've had a few cases in the field where you will say, listening to the headphones, you'll say, loud call, and I will, on the drone, see whales change direction. And, one-off observations are not enough for that. But yeah, if we can observe whales changing their behavior in response to other whales' calls.
Yeah, that's my dream.
That would be, that's a huge step in understanding whale communication.
So cool.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see.
But we will be back out there next year.
We will be.
We do have funding for next season.
We do. Yeah, we've really grateful to have received funding both from Sea Doc Society through a research grant, and also from Rock the Ocean through a donation to the project. So we will be back out there.
See you next year.